Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with his commands and commands us to engross ourselves in the words of Torah. Amen. All right, so let's go ahead with our lesson tonight. And here we are with, we're still in the right smack in the middle of our graph here with Midianites and Gideon, and here we've got our other chart here that kind of lets you know we got this 40 years of peace. It's Deborah and Gideon both were contemporaries, just different tribes. So then with this one right here, we're at this part here with Gideon, and like I said, that one just kind of gives me a headache. So we're going to go ahead, and I wanted to look at, first of all, got this map here. And this kind of gives us an overview of what we've been studying, where Gideon and his battles and where he had fought the Midianites from up here with Asher and Zebulun and Naphtali and so forth, and Manasseh. And so then they defeat them. They got them on the run, and down here, then the troops from Ephraim come in, and they cut them off at this ford here. Evidently, that was the place where they could get across the river in a safe fashion. So they had to come all the way down here to get across the river. But Ephraim was able to cut them off there, and there was a great slaughter. And then that's where we kind of pick up our story for tonight. And I'll go ahead with the reading. Now the men of Ephraim said to him, "What is this thing that you have done to us, not calling us when you went to fight against Midian?" So they criticized him sharply. But then he said to them, "What have I now done compared to you? Is not the gleaning of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God has given into your hand the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb, so what was I able to do compared to you?" And their anger with him subsided. Okay, I would imagine that this is probably just the cliff notes of the things that went on. I would imagine that there's probably a whole bunch of back and forth and angry shouts and things like that. But what this is, these first three verses here are they're kind of an epilogue. Is an epilogue the one that comes afterwards? Yeah. Okay. It's an epilogue that comes. It's the finishing of the story. So whoever in our Western Bibles here decided that, okay, we're gonna cut off this battle and stuff at chapter 7, and then we'll begin with chapter 8. They should have actually made it if it was the gospel according to Steve. We would have stopped chapter 7 after these three verses, because that's actually what the end of all of those battles and so forth. So the leaders of Ephraim, the Ephraim, largest, they're big, and they consider themselves the chief tribe, regardless of the fact that, of course, the prophecy and the blessings where Judah was going to be the lead tribe, and that the scepter would never leave Judah and all that. So this was kind of a tense deal. This was a big deal, having Ephraim come down to Gideon and say, what are you doing? You're dissing us over here, and we don't like it. And so, Gideon, instead of getting all hyper and blowing up against them, he was very very diplomatic, and he told us, look, what have I done compared to what you guys have done? Now you've captured and you've killed the two kings, the two princes of Midian, and what was I able to do? I mean, he said, oh, yeah, I chased them out, but you guys really ended it up. So you know, you're the ones that really did all of this work and so forth. So I don't really know. The Bible doesn't tell us why he didn't call Ephraim to begin with, but they were evidently they may not have been in as acute of a oppression that the other northern tribes were at, but for some reason they got greatly offended that they weren't called in, especially now that it looked like that the Midianites were going to be really whooped, and I think that what happened here is that they looked at there and said, you know what, we're going to miss out on a lot of spoils of war here, and so we got to go down there and and really fuss at Gideon for that. We ended up getting some, but we could have got more if we'd have been in on the whole deal. So Gideon told him, said, well, I really didn't do anything. You guys are the ones that really did all the lion's share of the fighting and everything, and you were the ones that defeated the princes. So he says, what did I do? You got the glory, and you got some booty here, and spoils of war, and so what am I compared to you guys? And so that kind of soothed their, the egos of his cousins there, the Ephraimites. And Gideon was from Manasseh, and so he was very diplomatic on this, and possibly a little bit later on he might not have been, but at this point he was very diplomatic, and it avoided a really, really bad situation here, because they could have it could have been one of those deals where it evolved into a civil war. In fact, the tribes did eventually they went to war against each other, and after the breakup of Solomon's kingdom, and they slaughtered each other by the thousands. And so the idea of Israelites fighting Israelites became more and more common as time went on, and eventually, when we get down to that, we'll be talking about second temple period timing, and bring in some things that maybe you didn't know about how much fighting there was going on at the time of Yeshua, and how that especially after Yeshua, and the Romans, in 70 AD, and then further on down to 135 AD, the Israelites, the different factions, would actually break into the food stores of the other factions and destroy the food of their, the Zealots would go after the Prushim, and the Prushim after the Tzaddikim, and the Pharisees against the Sadducees, and just all sorts of the Essenes. They decided, well, you can have it, and they left. There was a lot of fighting. Tens of thousands of Jews died in the infighting of the Israelites fighting each other. So it was not. It was they were not a cohesive group of people at this time. I'm not sure that they ever were cohesive there. They may have been, but they didn't like it. And, David and Solomon were able to bring the tribes together, but that was the exception and not the rule. So here we're seeing some of this back and forth, and some of the rivalry between the tribes. Any questions on that you might have? All right. And everybody's unmuted if you wanted to be. I had a question on that, but all right, we'll go ahead then. Then Gideon reached up, get there. Okay. Oh yeah, there's some things I wanted to bring out here. I forgot. This gleaning, it was kind of interesting in the language part of it, because he's talking about the gleaning of Ephraim, and so that kind of calls back to when Gideon was, he'd gotten his grain. He was in there hiding in a wine press, thrashing grain, because it wasn't the time of wine. So the Midianites would not be looking for somebody's doing grain in a wine press. So that's why he was doing this threshing in a wine press rather than on a threshing floor. And wine presses were normally a lot smaller. And so it would have been a lot harder for them to do any large scale threshing, but that's what he was doing to try to protect his crop. And so you got that gleaning idea, and then he talks about the vintage of Abiezer, and that vintage, the wine press. So again, that brings the two of them together, the threshing and the wine press. That was the actual call of Gideon. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of nerdy, but that's just kind of the Hebrew, the way that pulled together, and kind of nice Hebrew language playing on words. But at this point, then, both the gleaning and the pressing were all complete, because he was able to then wipe out Midian. All right, so going ahead. Then Gideon reached the Jordan. He crossed over, and he and the 300 men with him were exhausted, yet still pursuing. He said to the men of Succoth, "Please give us bread, give loaves of bread to the people on foot with me, for they are exhausted, and I'm chasing Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian." And all right. So what happened there? Gideon, he's got his 300 troops with him. These 300 have been tested in battle. They've been with him now through all of this. And what happened to all the other 32,000 people that had been in the fight before, and then they would dwindle down to 10,000? So, the 10,000 he left there on the west side of the Jordan River, because they were in a cleanup operation, a mop-up operation against Midian. And then the Ephraimites, they came in from the south, and they further trapped the Midianites. And so they were busy, with the Midianites and killing them off. So Gideon went across the river there with his 300 guys. Now these, at this point, this band of brothers, as it were, of 300, they'd been in the battles, and they were a tight, cohesive unit. Even though they were exhausted and hungry, they were disciplined, and they were dedicated to Gideon. He and his men reached the city of Succoth, and he asked for food for his men. So then we go ahead with the rest of the story there. And here I got a little map that showed the track where they were up there, and the battle began, and it worked its way on down, and you got all those Beth Shean and Abel Meholah, hard name, and then they get down, and here's Succoth and Penuel, and then on down to Karkor. But that kind of gives you an idea of the battle track there. And of course, this body of water up here is Galilee, and this body of water down here is the Dead Sea. This being the Jordan River here, just to give you a orientation. All right. Going ahead. But the officials of Succoth said, "Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand? So why should we give bread to your army?" Gideon replied, "Therefore, when Adonai delivers Zebah and Zalmunna into my hands, then I will thresh your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and briars." All right, so we see a side of Gideon that we haven't seen before here. Now, the leaders of Succoth, obviously they were trying to read the tea leaves, because here you just look at it. Gideon shows up with 300 men that are just dog tired. They had been chasing these guys for weeks and fighting them all along the way. They are exhausted. And now Midian still had 15,000 swordsmen, it said. And so when you get down to it, okay, you got 300 worn out troops with Gideon, and then you got 15,000. Of course, they probably were pretty worn out too. Troops with Midian. Still 300 against 15,000. That's a 50-to-1 odds. That's really not all that good. So the leaders of Succoth, they're looking at this, and they're thinking, okay, now if we give help to Gideon, who we've never seen before because he's from over there on the other side of the Jordan with Manasseh, and we don't know who this guy is, and he's got 300 bedraggled troops, and Midian has just come through here and on their way back into the heart of Midian with 15,000 troops. What are the odds that Gideon is going to be successful against the Midianites? Hang on. So they're playing the odds. So then what happens? Gideon, he looks at this and he says, "Okay, therefore, when..." Now, I like the confidence of Gideon. He said, "When Adonai delivers Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will thresh your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and briars." He said, "Well, if I'm successful, you guys, you're going to be sorry." No, he says, "Okay, when I defeat them, when Adonai delivers Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will come back here, and you're going to pay." So I liked his confidence there that he promised retribution when he returned. Now, here's a picture of Succoth today. It's a village over on it's in Jordan, actually. Succoth is in Jordan today, and it's just a big tell. And back in those days, they would find a high ground, they would build on it, and then they kept building on it and building on it. So these things like this, you might have 16 or 17 layers or more of civilization that goes through. I've been to Megiddo, and they've cut these big trenches in the thing so that you go down and you can actually see the various civilizations as they they just built on top of each other. All right, so from there he went up to Penuel and spoke to them, and he spoke to them similarly, but the men of Penuel answered him just as the men of Succoth had answered. Again, they're playing the odds. So he spoke to the men of Penuel and says, "When I come back safely, I will tear down your tower, this tower." So basically he says, "I'm going to leave you defenseless when I come back here." And so he's still continuing in the direction of the enemy. He is going after them. Now, What these two cities? Anybody remember what some of the things that happened at Succoth earlier? Do you anybody got an idea, or can you remember what may have happened at Succoth? Why are these cities significant in Bible history? Any guesses? Any ideas? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, well, I'll tell you. The Sukkot is, now what is a sukkah? Everybody knows what a sukkah is, right? We're coming up 6 weeks from now on the Feast of Sukkot. Now, so this idea of Sukkot, the city of Sukkot, it's related to sukkah. And so what that was that when Jacob went through there and he built sukkahs for his livestock. He built shelters for his livestock when he was in his journey coming back to from where he was where he was with Laban for so many years. And Penuel. Okay, yeah, Chuck, Charlie said something.
No, I'm just overwhelmed.
Okay, then Penuel. Anybody remember what that was? What happened at Penuel? Okay, that's where Jacob wrestled with the man, angel, God, whatever it was, all three in one. That's where he wrestled with the angel on his way back, and so he at that point, he said, "I'm not going to let you go until you bless me," and so that's when the angel said, "Okay, bless you. You're going to change your name to Israel, but zap, you're going to be crippled for the rest of your life." And so he put his hip out of joint, and so Israel was gimpy for the rest of his life, and he limped for the rest of his life, and as a reminder of his battle with the angel. And for that, as an aside, that's also why in Jewish culture they will remove the sciatic nerve on the animals, the cattle and goats and sheep, to properly make it a kosher animal. Okay, so that's where that comes from. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. I don't know. That's just no. That's not hamstringing. Okay, that's completely something different. Okay, all right. Here we go. We're going to keep any other comments or questions on that.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. Hang on. Okay. So going ahead now, here's a picture of the Jabbok River in Jordan, and it's that river's been there quite a while. It's way down there at the bottom. It's not that big a river, but it's kind of like when you go to Grand Canyon or something. The Colorado River, way down there in the bottom of the canyon, it looks pretty small. You say, how in the world did that ever cut all the way through there? Well, through the millennia of time that this area here. So you got Penuel, and Penuel. I think if I got my orientation right, it's this mound here, this area right here. I may be turned around, and it could be over here on the right hand side, but either way, this was kind of, that gives you an idea of the landscape and so forth. Not, but Penuel was, I think it was on the north side of the Jabbok River, and so it would have been over here maybe. All right, this picture doesn't really give me a whole lot of information. All right, so going ahead. then let's see. Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor, and with them their armies of about 15,000 men. All that were left from the army of the people of the east had fallen were 120,000 swordsmen. Now, so Gideon went up by the road of the tent dwellers on the east of Nobah and another Jogbehah, and ambushed the camp when it was off guard. When Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued them and captured the two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and he routed the whole army. All right, now here is remember, now this is where they were. If you look, I don't know if you can see my little cursor here. This is the Jabbok River right here. Okay, this little area, this little cut, and you can and you'll see Succoth is right there in that plain, and Penuel is just a little bit further inland, and then from there, then you've got this area over here. This is called this is what they think, or what they believe would be the area of Karkor, which is Wadi. Wadi Saran. Okay, just looking at the Arabic here, it's Wadi al Saran is what that says. And no, I really can't read Arabic. It's just scribbles to me. But I almost got you, didn't I? All right. So so he traveled from over here on the Jabbok to over here. Now Amman, Jordan is right about here. All right, so he would have headed down toward Amman, and then another few miles. So it's where he was is about 60 miles. This, I think, is about 60 miles here. If I remember right. I haven't been over in that area of the world, just up along this area over here on the sides is where I've been. We never went on in that far into Jordan. But this area here it's on the border between Jordan and Saudi Arabia. So anyway, they wouldn't have let me go into Saudi Arabia with that passport anyway. So, all right. So they sneak up on him, and actually Midian had lost about 120,000 men, and then so they're fixed to lose another 15,000 here. So Gideon, again, a surprise attack. Remember, that's when he did up at when the battle started with the 300 guys, and they came in there and tooting their horns and flashing their lights, and everybody got scared. God turned each one of them on each other, and they killed each other off. So Gideon here is outnumbered 50-1, and so I really believe that in this instance here, God intervened again, and somehow turned these 15,000 on each other, and they were able to defeat them. Again, it was another miracle that God had come into the aid of Gideon and his 300. All right, so Gideon. It says the Gideon, son of Joash, returned from the battle by the ascent of Heres, and he captured a boy from the people of Succoth and questioned him. So he wrote down for him the officials of Succoth and its elders, 77 men in all. And so he came to the men of Succoth, and he says, "Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna." He had them out there with him. And he says, "About whom you mocked me, saying, are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand? So why should we give you bread to your exhausted men?" Then he seized the elders of the city, and he got some thorns. he went out and got him some switches, and he whooped them with some switches, and he punished the men of Succoth. And then he went over to Penuel, and he tore down their watchtower, their defenses. And it said he slew the men of the city. And so, wow, what a difference that makes, especially when you consider that that all these people in Succoth and Penuel, these were Israelites. These were not pagans. These people, they were his cousins, as it were, and so this was pretty much premeditated on the part of Gideon. Capturing this boy, getting intel from him, getting questioning. He wanted to know exactly who it was that was out there, and so then he lined them all up, and he flogged them with these desert thorns and stickers, briars, and so forth. So if those briars were anything like some of the briars that we have, even out here on my place, we got some of these vines that wind up around trees and those kind of things. Especially out there in the Middle East, they got some briars that make my briars look like nothing, because their briars are on steroids out there, and taken and whip these people with them. That had to be very hurtful, because those little briars seem like they always have a little poison or something on them, and you can stick yourself with just a little tiny thing, and the next thing you know, you got an infected place on your hand. And so he took these 77 elders. These were old men, and in some cases, but he beat the stew out of them with these briars and thorns. And so then, though, he went to Penuel, and it said that not only tore down their tower, it destroyed all of their defenses, but it said he slew the men of the city. Now, to me, that's just way over the top, that he would do something like that. And the way that the Hebrew is written, we don't really know whether it was like that he killed every man in the city, or if he just lined up their leadership and executed them. We don't know. But certainly it was not the way to win friends and influence people within the tribes of Israel. And it was just pretty horrible, I think, that he would do something like that. He's acting more like, in this case, more like a tyrant than he is a proto-king, and a deliverer. So, it was pretty tough stuff for that he did. All right, going ahead. Then he asked Zebah and Zalmunna, "What kind of men did you kill at Tabor?" And they said, "As you are, so they were." He said, "Each one looked like the children of a king. They were my brothers," he said, "the sons of my mother. As Adonai lives, if only you had let them live, I would not kill you." Here we've got the idea. We know now why Gideon was so intent on getting these two guys, because now we don't know whether they were, either they were killed during the 8 years of occupation that Midian had inflicted all this stuff onto Israel, or if they were killed when the battles began up there at some point during these wars and battles against Midian. We don't know when they were killed, but it looks like to me that they were not killed like fighting and in battle. They were captured and then executed. It just the way I look at it. And so he said, well, what did these guys look like? And so the king said, well, they look like the children of kings. This is one of the beginnings of the idea that there was beginning of a monarchy in Israel. Of course, no, we're not going to see monarchy for another I don't know 100 years or so with Saul, King Saul, or however many. I don't know the time frame on that, whether it was 1 year or 100 or whatever. But it was still a long way down the road. We got a lot more chapters in the book of Judges before we come to Samuel and the beginnings of monarchy there. But there were still some hints here, because Gideon and his two brothers, they didn't describe them as, oh, they were wealthy men. They were, something, or they were strong people, or they were fighters or whatever. No, he says these were the sons of kings. And that's just it's kind of a hint of what's coming. So then Gideon, he invoked the name of God and said, and there again, that was something that people would do to enforce their oaths and justify themselves and so forth. And that's after he had sprung on these guys. Okay, you killed my brothers, and I'm going to get you for that. And as Adonai lives, I'm going to kill you. And so then he says to his son, his firstborn, and he said to, I don't know how you pronounce that, Jether. If he played for the Yankees, it'd be Jeter. But anyway, he said to his firstborn, "Arise, kill him." But the boy could not draw his sword, for he was afraid, since he was still a youth. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, "Rise up yourself and fall on us, for as the man is, so is his strength." So Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna and took the crescent ornaments that were on their camels' necks. All right. So he went to, Gideon said, "Okay, son, go ahead and kill these guys. You've been with me now, following along, and you get the privilege of killing our enemies, the kings of our enemies." And said that he couldn't do it. He was afraid to kill these guys. It says because he was still just a youth. And that kind of harks back to the days of when Gideon was called. He was kind of a reluctant person. We don't know how many months or years that this campaign against Midian was just a case of just a few days, weeks, months, or whatever. But anyway, we know that because the Bible tells us that he was still just a boy, a youth, whatever that means, whatever a youth is, a teenager maybe, and he couldn't kill these guys. So these two kings, you got to hand it to them. Here they are; they're fixing to die anyway. And so, rather than begging for mercy or something like that, they're getting in that last word with Gideon and just trying to provoke him. Says, "Well, just rise up and kill us yourself. If you're such a tough guy." And so maybe that was their plan, is that they didn't want an inexperienced guy to botch the job, so that they would linger on, because Gideon was going to get up there and kill him right away. he wouldn't be like the protagonist in the Quigley Down Under there, where he's going to cut out their heart with a spoon because it would hurt worse. Uh, oh, it was Robin Hood. Okay, I'm sorry. Same guy though, right? Yeah, same villain. And so those of you who are into the movies, if my youngest son was watching, he would be able to tell me exactly quote what it was and line and verse. But he killed. He went ahead. Gideon got up and he killed the two kings. And then it said he took the crescent ornaments that were on their camels' necks. Now I thought, that's strange. That you would go ahead and kill the kings and then take the stuff off their necks. Now, I think I've got some pictures of that later on, so I'm not going to. It's kind of a spoiler alert here. So then going ahead in here. It says, then the men of Israel said to Gideon, rule over us, you, your son, and your grandson as well, for you have delivered us from the hand of Midian. But Gideon replied to them, says, I will not rule over you, nor will my son rule over you. Adonai will rule over you. So this to me is a little surprising. Now it's a hint that Israel was looking for a hereditary monarchy. Here they're telling him now, and we don't know. It says the men of Israel. I mean, how many tribes was that? Was that all the way down to Judah and Simeon and Benjamin and the guys down in the south? We don't know. It just says the men of Israel said to Gideon, rule over us, not only you, but your son, and your grandson. In other words, a hereditary monarchy. Because you delivered us from the hand of Midian. And what was surprising to me then was that Gideon would be able to tell him, says, no, I will not rule over you, because nor will my son, but Adonai alone will rule over you. Because, he had been acting like, some of the things that he did in looking back in retrospect, some of the stuff that he did, it was like, he was really acting pretty much like a king, but he still had some integrity here, and he knew what should be right. And that's when he said, okay, no, Adonai alone will rule over you. I will not be king, nor will my sons be the king. So, he just refused that, and we went on. So then, yet Gideon said to him, I would make a request of you, that you would give me every man an earring from his spoil, for they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. That's kind of an interesting aside, isn't it? That these guys, these warriors that they had been, the Midianites, said they were Ishmaelites, so of course they had earrings, don't you know? So we'll certainly give them, they replied. So they spread out a robe, and each one of them threw an earring from his spoil. So the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold. And, besides the crescent ornaments and the pendants and the purple robes that were on the king of Midian, and beside the chains. So, actually what that turns out to be, Gideon, okay, says, look, I don't want to be a king, but I would like a little bit of compensation here after all of this stuff. If you would just give me one of the earrings from these guys, and that'd be okay. That's good. And so they did all that. Now, I don't know, again, if that was just his 300 warriors that did that, or if that was a greater amount of people that did it. We don't really know. But if you were to take that 1,700 shekels, now one of the equivalencies that I read said that's about 49 pounds of gold. And if you take 49 pounds of gold, then that's about it's about 1,019,000. Let's see, what is it? 1,019,200 dollars in today's world. So he ended up also taking the possessions of the kings. So their camel ornaments and that sort of stuff. So Gideon said, no, I don't want to be a king, but I do deserve something. And so they readily, very readily gave them to him. Okay, now here you go. Here's some ornaments for camels. Now the ones on the left are more like what I would think that these guys may have had. The ones on the right, all I could find on the ones on the right, these were from the Punjab area of India. And so, it's mostly woven stuff. It's not, they don't have like precious stones and jewels and stuff like that. But they could really decorate those camels, quite a bit. But at the end of the day, it's still just a camel. Okay. And, but anyway, Gideon came and he gathered up, and I assumed that what they had, they were loaded down with gold and so forth, and jewels on their royal camels, as it were. All right. So going ahead, Gideon made all this stuff, this gold, into an ephod and put it in his town Ophrah. But all of Israel prostituted themselves after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and his household. So Midian was subdued before Bnei Israel, and they lifted up their heads no more. The land had tranquility for 40 years in the days of Gideon. All right, so Gideon made this ephod. Now, what did it look like? We don't know. Was it maybe patterned after the high priest ephod? Maybe so. Again, we just don't really know. But the strange part about it was that he took it up there to Ophrah, where he's from, and the people, obviously, then the people could look at it and said, "Oh, wow, this is so beautiful. Tell you what, let's just bow down before it because it's so beautiful." It said they prostituted themselves after it there. In other words, they turned that into an idol of some sort, and it just kind of hard to understand their mentality. But getting inside the head of Iron Age people is a little bit difficult. It said it became a snare to Gideon and to his whole household. So then it said, Judges 29:32 says, Jerubbaal, which is Gideon, son of Joash, went and lived in his own house. Now Gideon had 70 sons of his own issue, for he had many wives. Also his concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son. He called his name Abimelech. Then Gideon, son of Joash, died at a good old age and was buried in the tomb of Joash his father in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. All right, so catch up with my slides here. Sorry about that. Then Gideon, says went back home and lived. He kind of lived the good life. He went back to his own house, own place, and then he had 70 sons because he said he had many wives. Well, that having many wives, that just means you got many mother-in-laws too, mothers-in-law, and so. Okay. Question is, Was that 70, or was it just because it was, you know, yeah. Well, the thing about it is 70. Remember that 70 is the number of the nations back then. That, you know, when they talked about the nations of the world, that there were 70 nations. So that's one of the things that it could have been. So we don't know if that was a symbolic number, or if that was really a true number. But what is significant here is that it said that he had one concubine, one of his wives. They lived in Shechem, and which is it's a ways from where, you know, Ophrah is. It's not, you know, not too far, but it's still a more than a day's journey. And it says, bore him a son, and his name was Abimelech. We would say that in our English today, Abimelech. But you break the Hebrew word down in it, it's Avimelech. Okay. What is Av in Hebrew? Anybody? I'm going to unmute y'all. What is Av? Avi. It's father. You know, like Abba. And then Melech. Okay, what is Melech? We say it every week. Melech Haolam, King of the universe. Okay, so King. I mean, it's Avi Melech. It's saying my father is king. And so that they named him my father is king. And so here again, another hint that that they were, you know, that this idea of the monarchy and you know, Gideon. Okay, he's not there. You know, he didn't take the title of it as such as a king, but he certainly kind of lived in the trappings of it. Even named his son, you know, this is the king's son, you know, by naming his son Prince, you know, whatever. But yeah, and so anyhow, that's just kind of funny how that turned out. But okay, finally, the last bit, it says, and it turned out, and it came to pass as soon as Gideon was dead, the Bnei Israel again prostituted themselves after the Baalim and made Baal Berith their God. And so Bnei Israel did not remember Adonai their God, who had delivered them from the hand of all of their enemies on every side, nor did they show kindness to the household of Jerubbaal, namely Gideon, in accordance with all the goodness he had done for Israel. So here we see this pattern of judges is completed. It's again the same kind of thing. You have a judge, then as soon as that judge is dead, the people say, ding dong, the judge is dead. Let's go do some bad stuff. And that's what they would do every time. The judge died, and then they would go fall right back into idolatry. And so evidently then Gideon did have his own share of enemies and so forth. We don't know about his personality so much, but it does say that Israel did not show kindness to his household. In other words, there was no gratitude for what he had done for Israel in kicking out the Midianites, defeating the Midianites, so that they were no longer starving to death because of the Midianites. So, you know, there he died, and then the cycle was repeated again. All right, now. Here's one more thing. There is actually a tomb of Gideon up there in Ophrah, whatever it's called today. I forget the name of it. But you know, this tomb has been It's been perpetuated over the millennia that it was the tomb of Gideon. So kind of interesting that they would still have that. Anyway, all right. So that concludes everything for tonight. I will open it up. Anybody got any questions?